I transferred $800 from my father's inheritance to my mother for safekeeping during my messy divorce. And when I went to get the money back 6 months later, she denied ever receiving a single penny, even while living in absurd luxury with my money. The antique dark wood wall clock that belonged to my maternal grandmother Dona Conceição, an honest woman who would be horrified by her own daughter's behavior if she were alive to witness such family dishonor, struck twice with its century-old mechanism that creaked slightly with each movement, as if marking not just the hours, but the exact and irreversible moment when our mother-daughter relationship definitively died. The sacred bond that should be indestructible replaced by something unrecognizable, monstrous, and grotesque that made me question every childhood memory, every gesture of affection that now seemed to have been merely long-term investments for the scam she executed with psychopathic mastery. The metallic and melancholic sound of her carefully articulated words, designed to cause maximum psychological damage, echoed through the spacious 1,200-square-foot living room of the house where I had grown up, playing among those same pieces of furniture, now silently witnessing the final destruction of any illusion of maternal love. Ricocheting off the white walls recently painted with imported Swiss paint at $500 a gallon that she had renovated with my money, while feigning selective dementia about the origin of those resources burning in her greedy hands like hot coals, and each syllable of her shameless and rehearsed denial penetrated my brain like sharp needles of maternal betrayal. Systematically, methodically, surgically destroying any remnant of family trust that might still exist between us, transforming decades of shared history into bitter ashes that burned my throat while I fought not to vomit from disgust and despair. Regina, my biological mother of 63 years, completed last March with a party I myself had organized and paid for with genuine love that now seemed pathetic. Who had always been my admired example of crystalline honesty and unshakable moral integrity throughout my entire childhood, filled with lessons about the importance of always telling the truth, even when it hurt, and adolescence when she severely punished me for any lie, however small, was standing there strategically positioned in front of me at exactly 6 feet, calculated to appear neither too close nor too distant, occupying the exact center of the $50,000 Persian rug she had certainly bought with my money, with a meticulously composed facial expression combining studied pretense of concerned maternal confusion with barely disguised satisfaction gleaming in the depths of her eyes like embers of pure evil, as if she were not just enjoying but deliciously savoring every second of my growing and palpable despair, while I tried to mentally process through the traumatic shock, the incomprehensible magnitude of the betrayal being executed with surgical precision against me by the person who literally brought me into the world and who should protect me unconditionally until her last breath. The expensive French perfume Chanel No. 5 in parfum concentration costing $2,500 for a 1-ounce bottle. Another absolutely impossible and unthinkable luxury for her miserable retired state teacher's pension that barely covered basic bills. Aggressively invaded my sensitive nostrils, like a nauseating and provocative olfactory reminder that she was literally bathing in my hard-earned money, while shamelessly denying its existence with the casualness of someone commenting on the weather, the cloying aroma of rare flowers mixed with musk intertwining with the smell of betrayal that seemed to emanate from her pores like toxic miasma. Her carefully manicured hands with Ferrari red polish on porcelain artificial nails costing $300 for bi-weekly maintenance held with rehearsed firmness, a fine Limoges porcelain cup decorated with 24-karat gold threads that I immediately recognized with a painful stab of recognition as part of the expensive 12-piece set she had purchased just 2 weeks after receiving my $1 million transfer at an import shop in the city's most expensive mall, where a single cup cost $800. Yet another glaring and incontestable physical evidence that she was shamelessly using my money to finance luxuries, while denying with psychopathic conviction the very existence of those resources that transformed her mediocre life into nouveau riche existence. The living room was exactly as I viscerally remembered from childhood, through deep sensory memories engraved in my hippocampus during decades of living in that space, with the same basic furniture configuration and the same hardwood floor that creaked on the 3rd stair step, except for the new and absurdly expensive objects now ostentatiously decorating every available horizontal surface, like trophies of her successful betrayal. Baccarat crystal vases imported from France costing $5,000 each, reflecting the chandelier light in 1,000 fragments that seemed to laugh at my naivete, Tiffany & Co. Sterling silver picture frames displaying family photos as if nothing had changed while everything had been destroyed. Chinese pure silk cushions at $1,500 each that she absent-mindedly caressed while lying, authentic Persian rug hand-woven by artisans in Isfahan that certainly cost a small fortune equivalent to years of impossible savings for someone with her official income. Each item silently screamed at frequencies only I could hear the obvious and painful truth that Regina denied with such vehemence and conviction. Forming a perverse and sadistic museum of her betrayal materialized in luxury objects she displayed shamelessly like a serial killer displays victims' trophies. Knowing I would recognize each piece and its approximate value, but could do nothing except swallow the indignation. The cutting and cruel irony of being brazenly robbed in the same sacred environment where she had taught me during endless Sunday afternoons about honesty, integrity, and the fundamental importance of never betraying the trust of people we love didn't escape me. Transforming previously dear and comforting memories of a childhood I judged happy into painful and traumatic reminders of monumental hypocrisy I had been pathologically unable to see through decades of denial and maternal idealization. I specifically remembered sitting at age 7 exactly where she was standing now, listening to her endless lectures about how liars are always discovered and pay a high price for their dishonesty, while she obsessively checked my homework to ensure I hadn't copied from anyone. The same woman now lying with the naturalness of breathing, as if decades of moral preaching had never existed or had been merely elaborate preparation for the perfect scam she now executed. The $800,000 now denied with such theatrical conviction and calculating coldness represented literally 15 years of extreme personal sacrifices that left deep psychological scars in my relationship with money and pleasure, obsessive savings that transformed me into a person who felt guilty buying a coffee from a machine. Calculated investments with complex spreadsheets I religiously updated every night before bed, and mainly the sacred and untouchable inheritance my father Carlos Eduardo had left exclusively for me through specific and irrevocable testamentary provisions before dying of devastating pancreatic cancer 3 years ago, after a painful 18-month battle against the cursed disease that consumed not just his physical health, deteriorating his athletic body in a matter of months, but also a large part of the family's financial resources on expensive experimental medical treatments at specialized clinics charging fortunes for hopes that never materialized, but which we tried anyway because it was impossible to simply give up on him. I vividly remember as if it were yesterday. Though 1,095 days have passed, each extra hour worked to physical and mental exhaustion, including weekends and holidays when I should have been resting, but was at the computer working on freelance projects that paid little but accumulated. Each trip canceled at the last minute, even losing the ticket value, because a work opportunity arose that couldn't be refused. Each most basic material desire violently suppressed in the name of building that financial security now being shamelessly stolen by the person who should most respect and protect it as an extension of herself. It was precisely 15 years and 3 months eating cold lunchboxes at work in plastic containers. I washed every night while colleagues lunched at expensive downtown business district restaurants and invited me, but I always declined, citing dietary preferences. Driving the same 2010 silver Toyota Corolla for an entire decade while everyone around me traded their cars annually for brand new models that lost 30% of value leaving the dealership, buying clothes exclusively at thrift stores and end-of-season clearances while obsessively and religiously saving every possible penny, as if my life depended on it. And in a way it really did, because that money represented my future freedom. During the last 3 months of life when the cancer had metastasized to the bones, causing excruciating pain that morphine could barely control, my father Carlos Eduardo called me privately to room 507 of the oncology ward at Mount Sinai Hospital, where he had been admitted for weeks connected to constantly beeping machines. On a specific Tuesday afternoon when Regina had left to get coffee, and Marcos hadn't even shown up claiming pressing commitments we all knew were lies, and explained with a hoarse but determined voice that painfully scraped his medication. Dried throat that he had separated through legal but complex financial maneuvers, a significant amount specifically for me in accounts and investments Regina didn't know about, because he knew with crystalline clarity that I was the only truly financially responsible daughter who would honor his lifetime sacrifices and would know how to manage those resources with wisdom and prudence. Unlike my brother Marcos, who had always been a compulsive spendthrift and chronic financial irresponsible, compulsively spending on imported cars he traded annually, international trips to trendy places he barely enjoyed, designer clothes worn once, and unnecessary luxuries trying to fill an existential void no money could satisfy. Laura, my dear beloved daughter, My father had whispered that gray hospital afternoon with the last strength remaining while holding my hand with surprising force for someone so debilitated, his eyes still shining with absolute lucidity and paternal love, despite the body devastated and unrecognizable from the disease that had consumed him from inside like acid. I know with mathematical certainty I don't have much time left on this plane, maybe days, at most weeks if the doctors are being too optimistic as they always are. But I need to be absolutely certain you'll be financially secure after I'm gone because that's the only thing still worrying me and preventing me from departing in peace. I've saved through sacrifices your mother never fully knew every penny I could during the last 20 years of my productive life, working 2 jobs, doing consulting on weekends, investing in conservative but solid stocks, even when your mother Regina constantly complained I was too stingy and we should enjoy life more with trips and luxuries our friends allowed themselves. It's exactly $800,000, Laura, not a penny more or less. It's your guaranteed future, your inviolable financial security, your golden chance to realize all those professional and personal dreams you've always postponed from excess responsibility and fear of risk. Promise me solemnly you'll use it wisely but also joyfully. But also promise with the same seriousness you'll allow yourself to be truly happy with this money. Realize your projects. Travel to those places you've always dreamed of visiting. Don't let absolutely anyone, not even your mother Regina or your brother Marcos, take this from you because I know they'll try every possible way when they discover this money. His prophetic words now echoing in my mind like alarm bells I had stupidly ignored had been an explicit warning I had miserably failed to follow. Trusting exactly the person he had implicitly warned me to protect the money from, betraying his memory in the most painful way possible, by handing his inheritance to the greedy hands of the woman he had supported for 40 years, but had never completely trusted with important finances. The shame of betraying my father's posthumous trust burned more intensely than anger at Regina's betrayal, because he had literally warned me, and I had ignored his warnings through childish idealization of a mother who never truly existed. The catastrophic and irreversible decision to temporarily entrust that sacred money to my mother, Regina, had been made exactly 6 months before. During a particularly turbulent and chaotic period of my personal life, when I was going through the Dantesque hell of an extremely contentious and psychologically violent divorce with Roberto, my ex-husband of 15 years of unhappy union, who had progressively revealed himself as a completely different man. Monstrously different from that Prince Charming I had naively thought I married that sunny spring afternoon, when I said yes before 200 guests, without imagining the nightmare awaiting me. The devastating discovery of his multiple betrayals had been like finding a cemetery of decomposing corpses in the basement of the house where you lived happily for years. Not just multiple and simultaneous extramarital affairs lasting years with women he introduced as cousins or co-workers, including one with my best friend from college who had been maid of honor at our wedding, but also systematic and meticulous financial embezzlement from our joint accounts he had used to support his secret gambling vices consuming thousands of dollars monthly, and his mistresses receiving expensive gifts, trips, and even apartments rented in their names. Roberto had transformed as if by sinister magic from apparently devoted husband bringing flowers every Friday and writing passionate cards on special dates into relentless and sadistic enemy the exact moment I formalized the divorce petition through my lawyer. Hiring an entire firm of aggressive lawyers specializing in bloody property disputes charging fortunes per hour but promising to completely destroy my financial position. Determined with sickly obsession to get not just half, but if possible all my assets through questionable legal maneuvers, including my father's sacred inheritance, which he argued with revolting cynicism was part of marital property, even though clearly received after our de facto separation when we hadn't slept in the same room for months. The veiled but clearly perceptible threats he made through his lawyers in aggressive court petitions, insinuating he could exponentially complicate my personal and professional life if I didn't accept his absurd and extortive division terms where he would get 70% of everything, had left me genuinely terrified about the security, not just of my financial assets, but also my physical and psychological integrity. As Roberto had demonstrated being capable of violence, I would never have imagined possible. My lawyer, Dr. Patricia Mendonza, a brilliant and strategic 47-year-old woman specializing in family law with 20 years of experience in complex, litigious divorce cases, had urgently advised me during a tense 3-hour meeting in her elegant but sober office on the 25th third floor of a mirrored building in the financial district to temporarily protect my most significant assets by strategically transferring them to accounts of absolute and unquestionable trusted people until the divorce was definitively finalized and property division judicially established irreversibly. Laura, you need to think strategically like a chess game about how to protect your inheritance during this judicial process that promises to be long and extremely complicated. Dr. Patricia had meticulously explained during that crucial meeting while we drank our third espresso of the afternoon, her professional voice laden with genuine concern, her Italian gold-framed glasses reflecting the cold light of monitors as she leafed through similar voluminous cases she had brilliantly won. Roberto is clearly determined with pathological obsession to get as much as possible from your resources, and if he discovers through bank secrecy breach about this $800,000 from your father's inheritance, he'll fight fiercely with all available resources to get at least half, even though legally he has no right to inheritance received after documented de facto separation. I've seen identical cases where vengeful ex-husbands manage to freeze assets for endless years through infinite delaying appeals, leaving the ex-wife without access to her own money while the process drags through the judiciary. Do you have someone of absolute and unquestionable trust? Someone who would never under any circumstances betray you to temporarily hold these funds? It needs to be someone Roberto would never suspect and who doesn't appear in any official marriage document. The natural, obvious, and apparently safe choice had been my mother Regina, the woman who raised me with apparently unbreakable solid values about sacred honesty, who always preached for decades about the fundamental and inviolable importance of family trust, and who had demonstrated throughout my life being a competent, cautious, and obsessively careful financial administrator of our lower, middle-class family's modest but important resources struggling to maintain appearances. Throughout my childhood filled with moral lessons, I had watched fascinated as Regina surgically managed the tight household budget, with detailed spreadsheets, religiously saving every penny for emergencies that always appeared, negotiating each purchase as if our literal survival depended on those dollars saved with sacrifice, and mainly teaching her children through daily practical examples about the fundamental and sacred importance of never, under any circumstances, betraying the trust of people we love. Family is absolutely sacred, Laura, and trust between mother and daughter is the strongest and most indestructible bond existing in the universe, she used to say solemnly when I was an impressionable child, words that now sounded like cruel and sadistic ironies considering her current betrayal destroying all those teachings. I specifically and vividly remember a memorable episode when I was exactly 12 years and 3 months old and found a lost leather wallet with $500 in cash, an astronomical fortune for our humble family at the time living on my father's teacher salary. Regina made me walk the entire neighborhood under scorching summer sun, obsessively looking for the owner for endless hours, knocking door to door, putting up notices on posts, saying with absolute conviction that money that isn't ours never ever brings true happiness, only curse disguised as blessing. The same woman who preached this unforgettable lesson now kept my $800,000 without any apparent shadow of remorse, sleeping peacefully every night on silk sheets bought with my money. The $1 million transfer of $800,000 had been made on a particularly rainy and melancholic May morning, with distant thunder seeming like ignored omens, the hypnotic and constant sound of torrential rain beating on windows creating a sinister and premonitory soundtrack for what should be just a temporary and pragmatic transaction of strategic asset protection. I executed the electronic bank operation personally with slightly trembling hands on my personal laptop, while my mother sat strategically beside me at the solid oak kitchen table in my house, watching like a hawk every minute detail of the transaction, and verbally confirming multiple times she would receive and keep that money with absolute and inviolable security until my divorce process was completely finalized, with final, unappealable judgment. The penetrating and comforting smell of fresh coffee we had just brewed together with special beans she had brought mixed surreally with the palpable tension of the moment, creating a complex sensory memory that to this day causes me instant nausea whenever I smell coffee aroma. Dear daughter, you can be absolutely assured I'll keep every penny as if it were my own vital blood. No one besides the two of us will even dream about this money's existence. And when you need it, even if it's dawn or a holiday, just let me know, and I'll transfer everything back immediately without questioning, she had solemnly promised, with what seemed like genuine emotion, holding my hands between hers with maternal force, her eyes even tearing slightly with what I interpreted as genuine maternal emotion for the trust I was placing in her. Laura, my beloved daughter, I deeply thank from the bottom of my heart you trusting me with something so monumentally important. I swear by the sacred memory of your father whom I adored for 40 years that this money will be safer with me than in any Swiss bank. At that crucial moment of transfer, I also sent a detailed and specific message via WhatsApp to Regina, meticulously confirming all transaction details, including exact amount down to the cents, specific reason for temporary transfer for protection during litigious divorce, approximate expected return date, and mainly our explicit and crystalline agreement that money would be returned in full without any discount as soon as my divorce was judicially finalized. I took obsessive screenshots of every screen, every bank confirmation, every microscopic detail of the operation, a neurotic but life-saving habit developed during years of corporate work at an American multinational, where I painfully learned that detailed documentation is vital protection and trust. Without verification is recipe for disaster. Dear Mother, I just transferred the exact $800,000 from Dad's sacred inheritance to your Bank of America account as we discussed in detail. Please immediately confirm receipt and always remember it's just for temporary safekeeping during my hellish divorce. I solemnly promise it won't take more than a few months. I love you infinitely and deeply. Thank you for invaluable help at this terrible time. I wrote carefully, choosing each word, taking obsessive prints of the entire conversation as I always religiously did with important matters, a life-saving habit developed during years working with international contracts and complex business documentation, requiring detailed and incontestable records of all communications. I even strategically added multiple heart emojis to make the message warmer and more personal, trying to express my genuine and deep gratitude for what I believed was a sublime act of unconditional maternal love. Regina's response arrived 17 minutes later. Elaborate and detailed in a way I now realize with crystalline clarity was meticulously calculated to appear even more trustworthy and reassuring, each word chosen to make me completely lower my guard. Successfully received. My dear beloved daughter, exact $800,000 in my personal account, checked multiple times and confirmed. Rest absolutely assured it's safer with me than Fort Knox. I'll guard it with my own life until you need it, even if years from now. No one besides the two of us will ever know about this money's existence, and when you want it back, just ask and I'll transfer it immediately, even if it's 3 a.m. on Easter Sunday. This money is absolutely sacred because it's your father's inheritance, my beloved husband of 4 decades, and represents my unique and special daughter's bright future. I would never under any circumstances allow anything to happen to a single penny. I love you more than anything in this world and am deeply honored by your absolute trust. You can sleep peacefully knowing your future is protected with me. During the endless 6 months that followed, while the Kafkaesque divorce process dragged through the Brazilian judicial system with glacial speed typical of complex matrimonial disputes involving high values, I watched with growing unease that evolved into alarm, dramatic, and inexplicable changes in my mother's lifestyle that in no way matched her modest retired state elementary school teacher's pension, barely reaching $5,000 net. The transformations began subtly like cancer growing silently. First was the previously natural gray hair she had maintained for years, which magically changed overnight to Hollywood platinum blonde religiously maintained weekly at a French salon in the luxury mall, charging $800 per session. Then came the previously simple and practical nails, now always impeccably sculpted with elaborate porcelain and gel techniques costing $500 for bi-weekly maintenance. The previously modest wardrobe was completely renewed piece by piece. The simple clothes from popular stores she wore all her life replaced as if by magic with $5,000 Armani blazers, $15,000 Louis Vuitton bags, Christian Louboutin red-soled shoes costing the equivalent of 2 minimum wages per pair. First were small luxuries she vaguely justified as accumulated lifetime savings, a $10,000 iPhone 15 Pro Max costing more than 2 full months of her pension, clothes from international designers she had never even dreamed of owning, frequent dinners at Michelin, starred restaurants charging $1,000 per person just for the tasting menu without drinks that she proudly and obsessively documented on social media like an influencer. Each post on Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok, which she learned to use at 63, showed an unrecognizable Regina. I couldn't reconcile with the mother I'd known for 4 decades. Smiling in 5. Star restaurants with Dom Perignon champagne flutes, checking in at luxury spas charging $2,000 per day of treatment, displaying purchases that combined represented decades of impossible savings even for someone who never spent a penny of salary. Initially, I desperately tried to ignore these glaring and worrying signs, convincing myself through elaborate mental gymnastics that maybe she really had secret savings I completely didn't know about, or that maybe my brother Marcos was having sudden professional success and helping financially. Though I knew in my core this was impossible given his history of chronic default and sequential business failures, always ending with me having to lend money so he wouldn't be evicted. The changes intensified dramatically and shamelessly when Regina casually announced during a Sunday family lunch celebrating a distant aunt's birthday that she had bought a brand new car cash, a luxury Mercedes Benz sedan costing approximately $250,000, an absolutely stratospheric and impossible value for someone with her laughable monthly income of less than $5,000, barely covering basic bills. The announcement moment was theatrically calculated with Machiavellian precision. She patiently waited until everyone was gathered at the lunch table. Distant cousins, rarely seen uncles, the extended family of 40 people present for the celebration, and then dropped the news like a casual bomb as if it were the most natural thing in the world for a modest retiree to buy a $250,000 car. Oh, I completely forgot to tell you all, I bought a new little car last week. It's there in the garage covered. After coffee, I'll show whoever wants to see. It's a small gift I gave myself for my 40 years of hard work and dedication to education, she said with false modesty while peripherally observing my reaction. The meticulously studied casualness with which she made the bombshell announcement, watching my shocked reaction from the corner of her eye with barely disguised satisfaction, was the first unequivocal and incontestable sign that she was not just shamelessly using my money, but sadistically delighting in the power of doing it in front of me without my being able to publicly confront her without seeming crazy or jealous before the entire gathered family. "Mom, how the hell did you manage to buy this car?" I asked with a strangled voice, desperately trying to maintain composure, while internal alarms fired deafeningly in my mind, my stomach turning violently with growing certainty of betrayal. "Oh, dear daughter, a person my advanced age deserves some small comforts after working honestly all her life. I got a very special financing at the bank where I've had an account for 40 years. She answered vaguely with obvious evasions, avoiding direct eye contact like criminals do when lying and quickly changing subject to comment about the 9 o'clock soap opera the whole family followed. An evasive and suspicious behavior I had never observed in her before in 4 decades of living together. Later that same night, when everyone had left and I managed to examine the car alone with cell phone flashlights, I found negligently forgotten in the glove compartment the vehicle's original documents. Cash payment in full, no financing whatsoever, contradicting her shameless lie, purchase date exactly 21 days after my $1 million transfer. The nauseating sensation of betrayal began crystallizing into absolute and devastating certainty, but I still pathetically fought against the obvious and cruel reality, my brain terminally refusing to accept that my own mother, the woman who gave me life, would be capable of such premeditated cruelty. The last straw that transformed painful suspicions into absolute and incontestable certainty happened when I accidentally discovered through a gossipy cousin that Regina had taken a 17-day trip to a 7-star resort in Cancun, staying in presidential suites costing $5,000 per night, a stratospheric total expense representing more than an entire year of her net pension, if she spent absolutely nothing on food, electricity, or water. My cousin Carla called me casually on a Saturday afternoon to comment on the spectacular photos. "Laura, did you see Aunt Regina's absurd photos at the Mexican resort? My God, what a surreally luxurious place. Must have cost an unimaginable fortune. Did you and Marcos give it as a surprise gift to her? What wonderful children you are." The innocent but revealing question was like a precise punch to the solar plexus, leaving me breathless. The high-resolution photos she had selectively shared with chosen relatives showed an unrecognizable woman living like a Saudi billionaire, enjoying gold spa treatments, 10-course dinners with lobster and caviar, private yacht trips, and mainly displaying expensive new jewelry I immediately recognized as designer pieces impossible for her real budget. A $50,000 genuine Tahitian pearl necklace, white gold earrings with 3-carat diamonds, Cartier bracelets sparkling like stars under the tropical Mexican sun. In one of the most outrageous photos, she posed holding a bottle of 1996 Dom Perignon champagne costing $20,000, the smile on her face a disturbing mixture of satisfaction and something darker I can only now identify as pure sadism and enjoyment of my future discovery. My brother Marcos, surprisingly but not unexpectedly, seemed not just fully aware but also a direct beneficiary of our mother's inexplicable new wealth. During this suspicious period, he mysteriously paid off astronomical old debts that had tormented and threatened him for years, including a $100,000 loan from dangerous loan sharks who had made explicit threats of physical violence against him and his family. His name was magically cleared from credit bureaus as if by divine miracle. 15 years of chronic default and sequential defaults instantly erased. He traded his falling apart 2005 Fiat Uno for a $200,000 semi-new BMW X5. Started attending a premium gym with a celebrity personal trainer charging $500 per hour, and mainly abruptly stopped asking me for constant and desperate loans as he had religiously done every week for an entire decade. The last time he had desperately asked me for money had been exactly 10 days before my transfer to Regina, $2,000 for a very serious medical emergency that I later discovered through mutual friends was a shameless lie as he used it for online gambling. Now he shamelessly sported a $100,000 Rolex Submariner watch, $5,000 rare Jordan sneakers, dined at restaurants where just the appetizer cost $300. When I confronted Marcos about his and our mother's absolutely sudden and inexplicable financial improvements, he became visibly terrified, sweating profusely despite the cold air conditioning, stammering pathetically trying to formulate answers, and responded with even more obvious and ridiculous evasions than Regina's. Laura, stop being paranoid and jealous of others' success. People can honestly improve their lives without it being something suspicious or criminal. You're not the only capable person in the family of making real money. Maybe I finally got some excellent consulting contracts. Maybe mom hit it big with cryptocurrency investments or stocks. Frankly, it's none of your business how we get our honest money. You've always been controlling and jealous of others' success since childhood. His exaggerated and aggressive defensiveness only definitively confirmed my certainties that something criminal was happening with my sacred money. Finally, after 6 endless months of exhausting legal battle that completely drained my physical, mental, and emotional energies, my divorce was officially finalized with favorable terms that fully protected my paternal inheritance, exactly as Dr. Patricia had predicted and strategically planned through brilliant legal maneuvers. The last hearing was particularly tense and dramatic, with Roberto making a final desperate and pathetic attempt to contest the property division through absurd allegations. But the judge was categorical and implacable in establishing that inheritance received after documented de facto separation didn't constitute divisible marital property under any interpretation. Roberto left the courthouse with his face red with pure hatred, muttering vague threats about, "This won't stay like this. You'll regret this." But I was finally legally free from him, and that was all that mattered in that liberating moment. Roberto couldn't touch a single penny of the $800,000 because the judge recognized with solar clarity that the inheritance had been received months after our proven de facto separation and didn't constitute divisible marital property under any circumstances. Sincere congratulations, Laura. We managed to fully protect your inheritance from that scoundrel. Now you can recover your money from your mother and restart your life with total financial security, Dr. Patricia told me after the final hearing, shaking my hand with professional firmness tempered by genuine personal satisfaction for the one case. Without imagining that the real devastating legal battle was just beginning, but this time against my own mother. With the finalized and stamped divorce documents in hand, and absolute legal certainty that my money was definitely protected from Roberto, I drove with anxiety and hope to my mother's house on a sunny and hot Thursday afternoon in November, naively expecting a simple routine bank transfer that would return my $800,000 untouched, and finally allow me to start the personal and professional projects I had meticulously planned for years of waiting. The familiar 20-minute journey seemed to last seconds, my mind feverishly planning how I would use the money. $300,000 to open my own design consultancy, $200,000 for conservative fixed income investments, $100,000 for emergencies, $50,000 to finally take that dream trip through Europe, and the rest for my own apartment where I could rebuild my life. I parked in front of the house, immediately noticing with nausea the extravagant improvements to the facade. New paint with German imported paint, professionally landscaped garden by famous designer, new armored electronic gate that cost at least $30,000, military security cameras everywhere. I found Regina in the completely remodeled living room, watching Netflix on an 85-inch 8K smart TV that certainly cost $20,000. The remote control studded with genuine Swarovski crystals resting on her lap covered with cashmere blanket, surrounded by new Italian furniture I didn't recognize, $50,000 genuine Italian leather sofa, Carrara marble coffee table, custom bookshelf taking up an entire wall, and absurdly expensive decorations that completely transformed the previously modest environment I'd known since birth. Mom, my divorce is finally definitively over, and I came to get my money as agreed. I need you to transfer the $800,000 back to my account today, please, I said directly, without unnecessary beating around the bush, hoping the simplicity of the request would result in an equally simple and direct response, though my heart already raced uncontrollably, anticipating serious problems. What happened next was an Oscar-worthy theatrical performance of denial and gaslighting that left me temporarily speechless, completely shocked by the incomprehensible audacity and cruelty of the maternal betrayal being executed with studied psychopathic precision. Regina paused the program she was watching with deliberate theatrical slowness, each movement calculated to the millimeter to increase tension, turned with cinematic slowness to face me with a perfectly rehearsed expression of confusion she had definitely practiced in the mirror, and pronounced the words that would start a devastating and irreversible family war. "What money, Laura? You never gave me any money. You must be confusing things or making up stories in your head, disturbed by traumatic divorce stress," she said with frightening calm, her voice modulated in a frequency of false maternal concern that made my skin crawl, as if she really believed her own lies or had rehearsed that response for months, waiting for this moment. I watched, fascinated and horrified, as her pupils didn't dilate. Her breathing remained regular, no physical sign of lying. She had psychologically prepared for this moment to the point of controlling even involuntary physiological responses. The denial was so absolute, so shameless, so incompatible with documented reality, that for a few seconds I thought maybe she was developing some kind of early dementia or neurological problem affecting her memory. But the calculating gleam in her brown eyes, the way her lips curved in an almost imperceptible half-smile when she saw my shock, and mainly the way her hands remained perfectly steady while pronouncing those shameless lies revealed, this was a conscious and premeditated performance. "Mom, please don't do this to me. You know perfectly well I transferred $800,000 to your account 6 months ago. We have WhatsApp messages confirming everything. You promised to keep and return it when I needed. Why are you doing this?" I asked with trembling voice, still unable to fully accept that my own mother was trying to shamelessly steal my entire inheritance, my mind desperately searching for some alternative explanation other than the obvious betrayal. Regina maintained the feigned confusion expression, but now added a touch of fake maternal concern that made her performance even more repugnant, tilting her head slightly as she used to when pretending to care. "Daughter, I think divorce stress is affecting your memory. You never gave me any money, and frankly, I'm worried about these fantasies you're creating. Maybe you should seek psychological help. I can refer you to a very good psychiatrist who treats these cases of post-traumatic mental confusion." The attempt to make me doubt my own mental sanity was the moment I fully understood this wasn't a misunderstanding or confusion, but deliberate and meticulously planned theft by someone who intimately knew my psychological vulnerabilities and was trying to exploit them to make me question the reality of facts. Years of minor manipulations I had ignored or forgiven suddenly made sense. She had always been a master at distorting situations to play victim or make me doubt my perceptions. "Regina, I have prints of all our WhatsApp conversations. I have bank transfer receipts. I have all documentation proving this money exists and was transferred to you. Stop this ridiculous theater and return my money immediately," I said, abandoning any pretense of cordiality and using her proper name instead of Mom to establish that our family relationship had fundamentally changed at that moment. Her reaction to the mention of Prince was a fascinating mix of momentary surprise followed by calculated recovery. For a fraction of a second, I saw genuine panic pass through her eyes when she realized I had documented our conversations, the mask briefly slipping to reveal the criminal beneath the maternal facade. But quickly she recomposed the denial mask and doubled down on the intensity of her lies. "I don't know what you're talking about, Laura. If you have prints of something, they must be conversations about other subjects you're misinterpreting, or maybe you've falsified these messages with some computer program. These days, it's very easy to create fake conversations. I would never receive $800,000 from you because you never had that money to begin with. The whole family knows you've always been dramatic and exaggerated about money, inventing wealth you don't possess to feel important." The mention of the whole family revealed another disturbing aspect of the betrayal. She had clearly recruited my brother Marcos and possibly other relatives to her lying narrative, creating a network of complicity that would try to isolate me and make me seem crazy or greedy before everyone. The strategy was Machiavellian in its simplicity. If enough people repeated the lie, it would become social truth, regardless of facts. It was a sophisticated manipulation strategy demonstrating long-term planning and absolute determination to keep my money at any cost, even if it meant destroying my family reputation and causing me deep psychological damage. Are you telling me Marcos will also deny knowledge about this money? Did you two coordinate this story? How many relatives did you poison against me with your lies? I asked, beginning to understand the complete dimension of the family conspiracy against me. Regina smiled openly for the first time during our conversation. A cold and triumphant smile that confirmed all my worst suspicions, completely dropping the concerned mother mask. Marcos has never heard of these imaginary $800,000 because they simply don't exist, daughter. You need to accept that maybe your memory is failing because of stress, or maybe you're confusing dreams with reality. It's common for this to happen to people who've gone through emotional traumas like divorce. Roberto called me the other day, very worried about your mental state. He said you were having delusions during the marriage, too. The mention of Roberto was calculated to destabilize me further, suggesting she had conspired even with my traitorous ex-husband. The casual cruelty of trying to convince me of mental insanity while using my own money to finance her new luxury lifestyle was so shocking it left me temporarily speechless. Just watching with growing horror the complete transformation of the woman I had considered my greatest protector into my worst enemy. Mom, I'll give you one last chance to do the right thing. Return my money voluntarily, and we can resolve this between us without involving lawyers or police. But if you continue with these absurd lies, I'll use all available legal resources to recover every penny, and you'll have to explain to a judge how you managed to buy a brand new car, take luxury trips, and renovate your entire house with a pension of less than $5,000. I warned, hoping the threat of legal consequences would make her reconsider her position, though I already knew deep down she had gone too far to turn back. But Regina had clearly prepared for this eventuality too, responding with confidence suggesting prior legal counsel. You can sue whoever you want, Laura. I'm not afraid of lies and false accusations. Any judge will see you're trying to extort money from your own elderly mother with made-up stories. In fact, I'll go to the police myself to report your threats and harassment. A daughter threatening her own elderly mother. It's very sad. I left my mother's house that afternoon with my heart broken into 1,000 pieces and mind spinning with the magnitude of betrayal I had just experienced. During the drive back to my house, I drove on autopilot while hot tears streamed down my face, blurring vision to the point of needing to pull over to compose myself. Not just from the devastating financial loss, but mainly from the much deeper loss of a mother I thought I knew and loved. I sobbed alone in the car, passing drivers looking curiously at the crying woman, without imagining she had just discovered that the person who should love her most in the world had chosen to destroy her for money. The woman who had raised me, who had taught me values about honesty and integrity, who had been my safe harbor during all of life's storms, had revealed herself capable of betraying me in the cruelest way possible, denying not just the money, but the very reality of our shared history. That same sleepless Thursday night, while the microwave's digital clock obsessively marked 3:17 in the morning, and I tossed in bed unable to sleep for even a second, I decided to begin my legal battle by obsessively compiling all possible and imaginable evidence of the crime of qualified embezzlement by kinship that Regina had committed against me. Sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of bitter coffee cooling beside me, I surrounded myself with notebooks, tablets, cell phones, printers, scanners, methodically organizing each piece of evidence like a prosecutor preparing the most important case of their career, screenshots of all our WhatsApp conversations since January when we began discussing the possibility of transfer, audio recordings I had secretly made of phone conversations where she mentioned the money, bank statements highlighted with fluorescent yellow marker showing the $1 million transfer, my father's estate documents specifying the inheritance, emails exchanged with my lawyer about the asset protection strategy. The absurd amount of evidence I possessed made Regina's shameless denial even more surreal and psychopathic. She was literally denying documented facts with such conviction, she seemed to believe she could alter reality through pure narcissistic willpower. I printed everything in triplicate, scanned in high resolution, saved to 3 different flash drives I stored in separate locations, uploaded to cloud with encrypted password, sent copies to my personal and corporate email. The paranoia of losing evidence was so intense it bordered on pathological, but considering I was dealing with someone capable of such betrayal, no precaution seemed excessive. The following Friday morning, after 0 minutes of sleep and liters of black coffee, I went straight to Dr. Ho. Patricia's office, carrying 2 accordion folders overflowing with documents, determined to immediately initiate criminal and civil legal action against my own mother. Dr. Patricia received me with genuine concern, noticing my visibly shaken state. Deep cavern, like dark circles, uncontrollably trembling hands, hoarse voice from crying so much. Laura, my God, what happened? You look terrible. Like you haven't slept in days. When I explained the surreal situation in detail, showing the incontestable evidence and relating Regina's theatrical performance of denial, I saw the lawyer's habitually composed face transform into genuine shock followed by professional indignation. This is qualified embezzlement, aggravated by family bond and breach of fiduciary trust. With this evidence, it's a one case, but I need to warn you that lawsuits against family members, especially mothers, are emotionally devastating. Are you psychologically prepared to see your mother potentially being arrested? Dr. Patricia asked seriously, her penetrating eyes studying me to assess my determination. She ceased being my mother the moment she chose to rob me and then try to make me look crazy. I want complete justice, criminal and civil. I want every penny back with monetary correction, interest, moral damages, and I want her to answer criminally for what she did. I responded with conviction that surprised even myself, anger finally overcoming sadness. Dr. Patricia spent the next 4 hours with me meticulously preparing the initial petition, an 80-page document detailing with surgical precision every aspect of Regina's betrayal, attaching all evidence in obsessive chronological order, creating a procedural narrative so solid and incontestable it would be impossible for any judge to ignore. Laura, this is one of the clearest cases of bad faith and embezzlement I've seen in 20 years of law practice. The evidence is overwhelming. We'll also request immediate freezing of all her assets, accounts, car, real estate, to ensure she doesn't dissipate the patrimony during the process, she explained while typing frantically, her professional indignation transforming into determination to achieve justice. Parallel to the lawsuit, I decided to hire Private Detective Oliveira, a retired 54-year-old former police chief with 30 years of experience in complex financial investigations, recommended by a client from the office where I worked. I found him in his discreet office on the 10th floor of an old commercial building downtown, a space smelling of old coffee and aged paper, with metal filing cabinets from floor to ceiling and a computer that seemed to have enough technology to hack NASA. Miss Laura, from what you've told me and the evidence you've brought, your mother clearly prepared for this scam. I'll investigate all her financial movements from the last 6 months, track where every penny was spent, discover if she has hidden accounts, investments in strawmen's names. With 30 years on the force, I've learned that white-collar family criminals are the worst. They know your vulnerabilities and have no moral limits, Oliveira said while examining documents with trained eyes that had seen every type of crime. Oliveira's investigation revealed in 2 weeks a scheme much more elaborate and premeditated than I imagined in my worst nightmares. Regina had begun preparing for the scam 3 months before I made the transfer, researching on the internet about how to protect money from lawsuits, embezzlement statute of limitations, how to create offshore accounts, browsing history. Oliveira managed to recover through methods he preferred not to detail. She had secretly consulted 2 different criminal lawyers about hypothetical situations, involving temporary custody of funds, paying consultations in cash to leave no trail. Even more disturbing, we discovered she had transferred $400,000 to an account in Marcos's name the same day she denied having my money, and another $200,000 to an account at an obscure credit union in the name of a distant cousin living in the countryside. Your mother is no amateur, Miss Laura. She studied, planned, and executed this like a professional. What impresses me is the coldness of planning to rob her own daughter with such advance notice and meticulousness. I also found receipts showing she researched signs of dementia and how to make someone seem mentally unstable. She was preparing to make you doubt your own sanity, Oliveira revealed in a tense meeting at his office, showing prints and documents painting a terrifying picture of criminal premeditation. The discovery that gaslighting had been studied and planned, not just improvised, transformed my sadness into incandescent fury. The explosive and definitive family confrontation happened the following Sunday during the monthly family lunch at my Aunt Beatrice's house, Regina's sister who had always organized these gatherings for decades. I hadn't been invited. I found out through a cousin on Facebook, but decided to show up anyway, knowing it would be my only opportunity to confront Regina and Marcos in front of witnesses. I entered through the front door without knocking at exactly 1:15 p.m. when everyone was seated at the table, 3 relatives staring at me with surprise and discomfort. Regina instantly paled upon seeing me, the fork falling from her hand and clanging on the porcelain plate, while Marcos began visibly sweating, loosening his shirt collar as if suffocating. "Good afternoon, family. I came here today to give Regina and Marcos the opportunity to publicly confess what they did before I proceed with the criminal actions already filed," I announced with clear and firm voice echoing through the silent room, pulling a thick brown envelope from my bag. "I have here copies of all evidence of the theft of $800,000 that my mother and brother executed against me. Bank transfers, WhatsApp messages, audio recordings, complete private detective report showing where the money went. Before you believe the lies they've spread, know that I have incontestable documentation of everything." The silence that followed was deafening, utensils suspended in air, mouths open in shock, small children sensing the tension and beginning to whimper. My Aunt Beatrice, an honest woman who always distrusted Regina, was the first to speak. "Regina, is this true? Did you rob your own daughter?" The direct and accusatory question made Regina stand abruptly, knocking the chair backward with a crash, her face red with anger or shame, probably both. "This is a lie. Laura is mentally disturbed since the divorce, making up absurd stories. She needs urgent psychiatric treatment." Marcos tried to support Mother's lying narrative, but his performance was pathetic, stuttering and contradicting himself. It's true. Laura has always been problematic. Since childhood. Imaginative. Makes things up. But when I showed the bank statement with the $400,000 transfer from Regina to his account, printed on bank letterhead with authenticity stamp, he completely collapsed. Mom said it was a gift. For the difficult years. I didn't know it was Laura's money. The partial and cowardly confession caused general uproar, cousins murmuring indignantly, uncles shaking heads in disapproval. Regina, realizing Marcos had broken and compromised her narrative, abruptly changed tactics, going from total denial to manipulative victimization, a transition so rapid it was almost admirable in its sociopathy. "All right, yes, Laura gave me money to keep, but she told me it was a gift. She said she wanted to give back for all the years of sacrifice, that I deserved comfort in old age. Now that she's regretted it, she's making up this story that it was just for safekeeping. A daughter who gives a gift to her mother and then wants it back. What a shame." The shameless lie in front of witnesses was the moment several relatives began taking my side. My uncle Carlos, my father's brother, stood up indignantly. "Regina, everyone here knows Laura inherited money from my brother. Everyone knows she was protecting it from Roberto during the divorce. Stop lying at least once in your life." The unexpected but welcome support gave me strength to continue. "I have here Regina's voice message, recorded 6 months ago, confirming she received the money to keep temporarily. Do you want to hear it?" I connected my phone to the room's Bluetooth speaker and Regina's clear voice filled the environment. "Successfully received, my dear daughter. $800,000 in my account, verified. I'll guard it with my life until you need it. When you want it back, just ask." The audio was incontestable, her own voice condemning her, destroying any pretense of gift or misunderstanding. Regina's face went through several colors, white, red, purple, while desperately searching for an exit. That's out of context. It was edited. Artificial intelligence. These days you can fake anything. My cousin Carla, a respected criminal lawyer who had remained quiet observing until then, intervened with professional authority. "Regina, stop. The more you lie now, the worse it will be in court. Qualified embezzlement by kinship can result in up to 6 years in prison, especially with aggravating factors of premeditation and attempting to destroy the victim's mental health. If you return the money now, Laura might consider withdrawing the criminal complaint, focusing only on civil action. It's your only chance." The mention of prison finally made Regina partially break, theatrical tears beginning to stream down her made-up face, smearing the expensive mascara in pathetic black streaks. "You don't understand. I worked my whole life, 40 years teaching badly behaved children. I sacrificed for this family. I deserved some comfort. Laura has youth. She can make more money. I only have a few years left. I wanted to enjoy a little. Is it a crime for a mother to want to live well at the end of life?" The attempt to justify theft as deserved was received with general repulsion. My Aunt Beatrice, always the voice of reason, was cutting. "Regina, you robbed your daughter. There's no justification. Return the money and beg forgiveness. It's the least you can do." But Regina had gone too far to turn back, pride and greed stronger than any vestige of maternal love. "I won't return anything. Let her sue me. I'll get the best lawyers. I'll prove Laura is mentally unstable. You're going to prison, Regina," I interrupted with icy calm. The private detective I hired discovered everything. The consultations with criminal lawyers 3 months before the transfer, the research about embezzlement, the transfers to Marcos and cousin Maria, the prints of you researching how to make someone seem crazy. It's all documented. Monday, the judge will freeze all your accounts and assets. The new car already has a search and seizure order. Your house will be foreclosed, and you'll answer criminally. The lunch ended in complete chaos, Regina leaving with hysterical screams about ingratitude and injustice, Marcos running after her like a loyal dog, some relatives on her side out of pity or convenience, others clearly on my side out of indignation with such family betrayal. The family had been permanently divided, decades-old relationships destroyed, but I had managed to publicly expose the truth, taking from Regina the power to control the narrative. The criminal and civil judicial process dragged on for torturous 18 months, each hearing a new theatrical performance of Regina trying to play the senile and confused victim, reaching the point of faking fainting spells and panic attacks. But the evidence was too overwhelming to be ignored. The psychiatric expert report, ironically requested by her defense to try to prove my mental instability, ended up confirming I was perfectly sane and showed clear signs of having suffered psychological abuse and attempted gaslighting. During the trial, even more sordid details emerged through the breach of Regina's bank secrecy. We discovered she had spent $300,000 in 6 months, $50,000 per month, more than 10 times her legal income. Jewelry, trips, clothes, restaurants, gifts for the secret lover 20 years younger no one in the family knew about, an Instagram personal trainer she supported in exchange for sex and companionship, paying his apartment rent and financing his lifestyle. The final sentence was devastating for Regina. Criminal conviction to 4 years in prison in semi-open regime for qualified embezzlement, plus obligation to fully return the $800,000 with monetary correction and interest now totaling $1,200,000, plus $100,000 in moral damages. Since she had squandered almost all the money and had no way to pay, all her assets were seized: house, car, jewelry, everything. I watched Regina being handcuffed leaving the courthouse, face aged 10 years and 18 months, the platinum blonde hair now with 5-centimeter gray roots, the previously perfect nails bitten to the flesh. "Laura, please, forgiveness. I'm your mother. Don't let this happen," she screamed while being led away, but her words were empty as they always were, manipulation until the end. Marcos, who had made a plea bargain returning the $400,000 and testifying against Regina, stood in a corner, avoiding eye contact with me, shame and cowardice emanating from him in waves. I recovered $600,000 through the forced sale of Regina's assets and the agreement with Marcos. The other $200,000 had evaporated in expenses impossible to recover, but the money had become secondary. What I had really lost was irreplaceable. A mother, a brother, the illusion of a loving family, the innocence of believing blood ties meant unconditional protection. Today, 3 years after that fateful afternoon when Regina looked into my eyes and denied my reality, I live in a different city, 600 miles of physical and emotional distance from that destroyed family. I built my design company as planned, using the $600,000 recovered. The business thrives. I employ 15 people. We revenue $2 million per year. Professional success that tastes bitterly of Pyrrhic victory. Sometimes I wake at 3 a.m. with nightmares where Regina is still trying to convince me I'm crazy, that the money never existed, that I invented everything. Therapy helps, but some wounds are too deep to completely heal. I learned the worst way possible that family can be your worst enemy, that maternal love can be conditional to the point of non-existence, and that when money is involved, even the people who should protect you with their own life can transform into predators. Regina serves time, works in the women's penitentiary laundry, aging rapidly behind bars. Sometimes I think of her, not with longing or pity, just with morbid curiosity about how someone can choose money over their own daughter. Marcos disappeared, moved to another state, married someone who doesn't know our history. Occasionally sends messages asking for forgiveness that I delete without reading. In the end, the $800,000 my father left to secure my future ended up fulfilling their purpose in an unexpected way. They taught me about people's true nature, forced me to mature emotionally, freed me from a toxic family I idealized. It's expensive freedom, paid with tears, betrayal, and loneliness, but it's mine. I keep only one photo from before, me as a child on Regina's lap, both smiling on some beach, when I still believed mother was synonymous with unconditional love. Sometimes I look at that innocent girl and feel sorry for what she'll discover. Sometimes I envy her ignorance. But mainly, I feel proud that she survived and thrived, even after discovering that the love she believed was her birthright had, after all, a price. My father's inheritance gave me much more than financial security. It gave me the naked and raw truth about the people I loved most. It was the most expensive and most valuable transaction of my life. I discovered that family is who chooses to stay by your side when you have nothing to offer, not who appears when you have $800,000 to keep. Regina taught me the most important lesson of my existence, though not the way she intended when raising me with sermons about honesty. People capable of such betrayal always existed by our side, just waiting for the opportunity and the right price to show their true face. My mother's price was $800,000. Today, I know the exact value of what I thought was priceless. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks of me in solitary confinement, if the temporary comfort the money provided was worth losing a daughter and freedom. But these are futile thoughts. Sociopaths don't feel genuine remorse, only frustration at being caught. Regina didn't lose a daughter because to lose something, you first need to value it, and she definitively proved I never had value beyond monetary. The money is gone. Spent on ephemeral luxuries, now just memories and photos seized as evidence. The jewelry was auctioned, the car sold, the designer clothes donated. All that remains of Regina's great betrayal are archived lawsuits, a destroyed family, and a daughter who learned that $800,000 can buy many things. But what they reveal about human character is priceless. This is my story, recorded in every obsessive detail because memory is my only defense against retrospective gaslighting. My personal proof that I didn't go crazy, that it really happened. Regina tried to make me doubt reality, but reality won, documented in court sentences confirming every word. Today I can finally say with absolute conviction, my mother stole $800,000 from me, tried to make me seem crazy, destroyed our family, and chose money over love. These are facts, not interpretations. And with these facts, I built a new life far from her, far from all of them. A life where I trust contracts, not blood ties. Where love is proven in actions, not shared DNA. The final and most bitter lesson, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Regina showed me who she was when her pupils didn't dilate while lying, when she smiled slightly, seeing me in despair, when she consciously chose to destroy me for money. She showed me that I was, to her, just a transaction that had finally become profitable after 39 years of investment. My father was right on his deathbed. Regina would try to take the money from me. He knew her better than I did, saw through the mask she wore so well. I feel I betrayed him by trusting her, but I also know he would understand. After all, who could imagine a mother would be capable of such monstrosity? Only someone who lived 40 years with Regina and learned never to completely trust her with anything important. My grandmother's antique clock, the only family heirloom I kept, still beats its melancholic hours, now in my new apartment where Regina never stepped, nor will step. Each beat reminds me of that afternoon when I discovered my mother had chosen to betray me. But it also reminds me I survived. That truth won, that justice, even imperfect and late, prevailed. Did you enjoy Laura's story? Then subscribe to the channel. Leave your like and comment where you're watching from. Oh, and there's another story waiting for you here on the screen. Click there and I'll be waiting for you.